Welcome to Sesa Suban, Sacred Conversations in Ancestral Transition and Spiritual Evolution. I am Mama Tyrion. I am what is known as a death doula, but we also go by many other names. And this series explores death and how it functions in our inner and outer worlds, and provides space for otherwise unwelcome expression. And because death seems like too small a word, we use a lot of different words to describe transition or endings, the continuum, and a lot of other different ways. So we are joined by my dear Mama Nubia, Sister Nubia, community educator. She is actually one of the first people who I've known to actually participate in primary research as a cultural scientist. Mama Nubia, Sister Nubia, is now a PhD student and Master of Arts at Temple University. And the most Aquarian that has ever Aquariused that I've come across in my life. So I'm so honored to be able to witness some of her journey. She has done so much for the community here in Detroit, and I imagine that she's doing quite a bit over in Philadelphia. She was the first person who I knew to bring people lectures that I would be interested in seeing. Like, well, I had just gotten to be an adult, but Marimba Ani, Queen Afua came to see us. Did you have Rodoko? You've hosted so many people. You have Rodoko Rashidi. Yeah, so appreciated just bringing the history and culture to us, so to help to cultivate our little community here. Grateful. So I could go on, but if you could maybe fill in some of the blanks that I may have missed about who you are, dancer. Anyway, if I know that I've easily missed some things here.
I love it. I think the last one was probably something that I've done all my life. Dance since I was 7 years old. So, started with tap ballet and Caribbean, and then, had a huge, huge gap when I didn't do any formal
Yeah,
dance.
once a dancer, always a dancer. You gotta. I need your stage voice.
Okay, all right. So yeah, all right. So this is so as a dancer, I feel like my cultural scientific research is actually supported by the culture in it, because dance is something that we use in and out of every culture. Every culture has a dance. I don't know that any culture that doesn't have an aspect of dance as for celebration, for all kinds of, or different purposes. Usually celebration or ritual dance, and so it really fits in with the topic. Even the people that you wanted to ask me about, ancient Meroë did that. But my background is just such. I'm a student finishing up. I am a student for life. No telling where I'll go next, because learning is just things. I like to learn more. I like to learn more. And I like to see what people are doing. How African people are interpreting this experience in the world, in the diaspora, in the diaspora as well as on the continent. So, I really do love people. Sometimes I'm more observant of people than participatory, because I just want to see what's going on. But I really do love people, and to see how everybody's interpreting our living experience. As Black people, being some of the most oppressed people in the world, we are we're remarkable adapters to every
Hmm.
situation. We are remarkable adapters. And so I'm always really interested in seeing how that is. But, of course, my core research, as you know, is our origins and, how far back we go and how back our cultural, our original culture is. And how much of it do we practice today without even knowing that we're practicing? And we do it a lot. Even people that say they don't, and they're
Mhm.
not into any,
We
of
have that
course,
cultural retention.
yes,
Yeah.
we have plenty of cultural retentions, but we just don't understand how much we have. I mean, anytime most Black people sit down to the dinner table, they are practicing cultural retentions just by their menu. If you're cooking on a holiday, you're usually dealing with cultural tradition and retentions at the same time without even realize that's what you're doing. You know, I have a cousin, beautiful cousin, who looks just like an Ife head, right? And she says she's not African. She doesn't know anything about Africa. She's born an African American. Ask her what she's having for things taking dinner. She's gonna have black eyed peas, greens, cornbread, macaroni and cheese. You know what I mean? Totally
Without even
African.
thinking about it.
Yeah. And she's
Such
one of
resilient people.
right. She's one of the best cooks in our family, so we practice African traditions and don't realize. A lot of times, not give any thought to it whatsoever. She cooked that way because her grandmother cooked that way, and her aunts cooked that way, right? So that's pretty much the way it goes. Things that you do in your house, sometimes there are cultural retentions too. So yeah.
Agree. Appreciate that. So we're here, among other things, to discuss the people of Meroë and their burial practices. So we should probably begin with, who are those people?
Are the people of ancient Meroe? They're the people they've gone by a lot of different names.
Oop, a little bit
Tana
louder.
has they've gone the people of ancient Meroe but have gone by a lot of different names. Um, some of the oldest names is Ta Nehesi, land of land of the Nehesi or the Nehesi or Nehesu people, depending on what Lao, because we're not sure what Lao it was. Then there are the people that we call the Kushites next. Then there are the people, named after the Nub, the gold in the area, the Nubians. And then there are the Meroites. The Meroites, which mean Meroe, which means temporary lake, because they made it was a portion of the land base. They moved to ancient Meroe from which we call it Jebel Barkal, but in that time it was called Napata. After um, after Taharka lost the battle, him and his son with the Assyrians. Not too long after that, the Assyrians came. I think it's Plymies came and he sacked Napata. So they moved their capital to ancient Meroe. And so those people lived. Some books say 500 BC to 500 AD. Some say 700 BC to 380. But we know one of the most important periods, unique periods, was 350 BC to 350 AD, when we know that these queens were ruled. These queens ruled until about 500 AD, 500 our time. So not 1500 years ago, our ancient African sisters were taken, and that's the longest period in history than women in any history that women were the rulers. They weren't just the wives of somebody. They were the ruler. They were the Kandakes, the queens.
Candaces.
Kandakes is the Candace is the French word for that, but Kandake is the Meroitic word for it. And, or
Mhm.
some people call it Kantakes or Kintex, because of the way it's spelled. But is
Mm.
Kandakes as far as Kandakas as far as the Nubians. I call it like the Nubians, and we call it Kandaka. And so we always try to go with the African pronunciation, the local African pronunciation first, rather than the
Mhm.
adaptations from the colonial people and other people that reinterpret their work. It is always best to get it from the mouth of the ancestors as best as we can.
Okay. Who are some of the Kandakes that we would remember?
Well, some of the most famous Kandakes, of course, are um, Monica Shito, who her pyramid was suffered the most damage because a pot hunter, so-called archaeologist, but he was a pot hunter, came and he blew off the tops of the pyramids. So we got into about 1868 or something like that, till that we had the pyramids were in pristine shape, but he thought there was gold and jewelry in there, which it was, um, left in there by and he actually sacked it, but his whole mission was kind of turned on its side because when he took it to Europe and other places, they did not believe that this was African jewelry and it was came from African people because it was too beautiful. It was too beautiful and
Hmm.
well made. So we assume he melted some down and sold it, and much of it ended up in the Moscow Museum. And so yes, and then we will also know, of course, Meroë, who is they call one-eyed Candace, one-eyed
Yes.
Kandake. Um, it's assumed that she lost her battle. We don't know that she lost her eye in the battle, in one of the battles, because she fought on the front line. She was not. She led the troops into battle. Um, Strabo says that that her physique was that of a man. No woman should be that strong looking. All right. So she beat some tail. Okay. And she's my favorite woman of all times. The Augustus Caesar was coming in to sack the um, the land and invade the land, and he had 30,000 soldiers with him. And so she came up into the encampment and told him, "You can come in, but you're not going to leave." So you know what I mean. And she came with her 100,000 soldiers, and came into his camp and stole his statue that he placed in front of it, beheaded it, which was a ritual. Beheading it, and she buried it under her throne so she could step on his face every day when she stepped off her throne. So I always that is a sister that just she is to our heart. Now I think this was about 30 BC, that this
Okay.
happened. And so because of the treaties that she actually made, the peace treaties, they lasted over 500 years of the Rome. Peace
Hmm.
treaties, trading agreements, and all that kind of stuff. You say, "Oh, we can do correct trade, we can do business, but you're not going to colonize." Now, after those
Talk about
treaties
enduring.
after those treaties ended, probably in the 1300s, probably 500 years after they ended, not even that much, probably about 300 years after they ended, there was some forms of Italians coming in and spreading Catholicism and things like that in Sudan, where we get Damiano, which is our great mother, because these women, you know, God was worshipped in the form of a woman in that region, and this is Job. This is where I disagree with him. Job says that men decided that there was going to be matriarchy in some places. The men decided there was going to be patriarchy, but that is not what the culture tells us. The culture tells us
Okay.
that the oldest story that we know from Nubia was Queen Aset, known as Isis, and Isbiti Nis, Nisbiti Isu um, Asar, and he was the leader, king of Pharaoh of the nation, right?
Mhm.
And That's the oldest book. That's the oldest story that we know, and it shows women having significant leadership. So it seems like the cultural continuity of any matriarchal society, it's naturally places the women in leadership roles because women are seen as very wise and brilliant leaders. Um, very well balanced. You wouldn't see the creation of a neutron bomb of a nuclear bomb in if it was matriarchal societies because we would find out something more humane and more human how to negotiate these societies, how to negotiate um, at the time of disagreements. So I disagree with that. With that, with I'm
It seems like patriarchy, and this is not scientific, but it seems like patriarchy showed up around the same time as colonization and xenophobia.
well,
Seems like you
patriarchy.
can't really separate those.
Well, that's when patriarchy showed some form of takeover, colonization. But patriarch, I mean, those Greeks and Romans, they were patriarchs too, you know,
Hmm.
and they took over, and we're talking about 300 BC, 400 BC. I mean, it took them that long to garner up the strength to take over these matriarchal societies because it took thousands of years to weaken the culture because we're talking about cultures that had existed for almost 2 million years, you know,
Right.
that I know of. You know what I mean? So, where I'm sure I would get, people say, "Oh, why would you say that?" Because when we see as cultural scientists and you see the gold mining, when you go with these gold mining levels, especially in Sudan, where we get the 1.9 million years of
Yeah.
human activity, you see that they're doing the same things as the people that are mining the gold are doing, right? They have workshops. They're making jewelry. They're mining for gold. That's human intelligent activity. That's not non-human activity. That's showing a form of intellect, and most likely the 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 formation, the beginning, and the development of spirituality. If it is not already in place, since we don't have a recording, which I believe that's coming very soon because the things the quartz rocks have have contained a lot of sound and memory, and once that's mined, we will be able to see what happened in the past once that happens. But we also now we are seeing what's going on in the artwork, so we know what's going on. The reliefs are giving us pictures of what's going on in the past, so therefore we have pictures of the past that we don't consider as evidence as the past in a part of history. All right, that is history. And most Europeans do not consider oral history as history, but it is. It is history. It is
It
art
is.
form. Yes.
Hmm. Yeah, I don't know if written language can do what oral tradition does. I can't see it. This is not replaceable. But there is such a thing as Meroitic script.
Yes.
Hmm.
The
So
Meroitic
those are
script.
still.
Yeah, but a Meroitic script, we right now you're only able to read names and dates on the script. They haven't found a Rosetta Stone that can that can decipher each of these letters and stuff and put it, and understand the grammar and the context of the structures of the sentence. But they do know names and they do know dates on the Meroitic stones, and it'll be figured out. It will be figured out. There
Yeah.
are hints that there are people in Nigeria that still speak the language, that when they move to different places that they still speak the language. So there's always, all it takes is the next brilliant person to come around, and then that and reveal what, exactly all we need is a brilliant linguist to come around, just like Champollion came around and shocked the whole Europe. They said this is an African language. It comes from African culture. It comes from African people. They called him a savant because he was so focused on the language and in studying. Not too soon after that, he passed away. You know,
Mm.
these passings I'm seeing seem to be very, very, very connected. Oftentimes, with we don't know, if people are saying different than the instructed narrative, then academia destroys people for not going along with the narrative. I mean, in my school, the Africology department is, there's a full out war against the Africology department to dismantle it because it re-narrates history in a way that decolonizes history.
Decolonize. There is nothing lost, hidden, or concealed in the universe. Everything comes to light. So, in your capacity as a cultural scientist, you have done what are known as digs, archaeological digs. And what have you been able to witness firsthand about burial practices in Meroë?
That's a very good question. Very good question. In Meroë, one of the first, I found one of the first deceased bodies. Probably it was buried in the 1500s. Um, and what this was not a royal person. So what we found was this person was buried
Not
on
not a royal person.
not a royal person. They were not a royalty. They was a regular person. We don't know who this person was, but they were buried um, with their hands um, folded together. I mean, they rested because the women rest their arms resting aside, and the men's arms are folded. And this person must have been wrapped in linen, but they were unclothed at this time. Probably, over time, their clothing was left. There were beads, you know what I mean? There were beads that they had on, that the string had deteriorated, and they were buried at the highest point in their village. So this pyramid, burying of pyramids, you know what I mean, comes out of the culture. The common people don't have the means a lot to build pyramids. That's something usually that the royalty does because most people don't have that experience, right? To be able to build a pyramid to preserve your body for many many years. But the from the culture, people actually buried their dead in high places, in the highest places. We're in Detroit now. Near me, where I live, is there's Mayflower Church on Curtis, right off of Livernois,
Yeah,
and that was once
the
a
mound,
very
right?
yeah, that
It's
is
right on
very
top of a mound.
it's on top of a mound. It's on top of a Native American burial. They built that
Yeah,
church on top of the Native American indigenous burial site. Okay,
wild.
uh,
And
and
called it Mayflower.
they called it Mayflower way back from the Pilgrims, as colonial as you can get. And so this is in our burial practices, and the people that we know of in Michigan. There's Egyptian mounds in Michigan as well, that have been
Mhm.
dismantled in evidence of Egyptians. So what I'm trying to say to you is that this mound culture is of African origin. Okay. It is of African origin. It's spread different places, but the people, the original people that built mounds and stuff, were definitely people of African origin. And so that's one of the burial. Why are the mounds so important? Because these are the vessels that we actually orient the body to the east, to face the east, so that they are they are facing when the sun regenerates. All right. So these burials are actually rebirthing places. Okay. They act as a ritual to rebirth, to revive, as well as to make sure that this person is always a member of the family. There are some places in Sudan and other places where I hear sometimes people are buried in the house in Africa, right? They're buried in the house so that this person is always with you, all right? Um,
It's like part of the foundation,
yeah, they're buried in the house. They're buried in, they're
or
like
well, I guess that's impossible. Or in the wall.
in the, no,
Okay,
they're buried in the floor, basically, so that you're all with this person is always,
in the floor.
yeah.
Okay.
Now I have not made
Mm.
any sizable study on that. But if this person is not physically in the house, when there's a meeting and there's a meeting called, that person is always thought of as part of the family. All right. It's done through libations. It's done through offerings. At each one of these, in front of each one of these royal mounds, you have mortuary in front of it, and they have an offerings tray. On that offering tray is usually honey, dates, mango, bread. Now, mango has specific because mango is shaped like an egg. So, mango means also rebirth and stuff. As well, it's a delicious fruit. Has to be some of the sweet favorite. The fact that each one of some of the main things that they give for offering are sweet means that they want to give somebody something that's sweet, something that's memorable. Your memory is sweet. You were a sweet part of our community. Just there's a lot of meanings in it. Even the bread, the the offering of the bread. The bread is at one time in ancient Nubian history, ancient Kemetic history, the bread was a symbol for the goddess Neat. That's the reason why we have the words knit, kneading, and all of those things that you do with bread, because Neat actually wove the universe into creation. So the word knit is
That's
actually,
the spider.
that's that's Anansi, right? But the web that she creates um, is the network. It's scientific. It's the electromagnetic web of creation. There has to be a certain amount of
Mm.
electromagnetic forces, and so though that's translated into weaving and fabric and culture and all that kind of stuff. But there's a scientific side, this electromagnetic web or network that has to be, or what do you call this matrix that has to be in formation for life to exist. So when you look at all of
That's
the
neath.
hindsight, yeah, neat or knit, you know what I mean?
Oh,
And she is the mother of Ra. She's mother of the sun, right? So she creates the universe. She births the sun. There's no universe without the sun, right? There's no life
right.
without the sun. So you have the, the you have the dark and the light, the balance of that. I mean, it's so scientific when you get into it. Um, it's just mentioning the surface meanings of these things is just not enough. In offerings to these people, and that you're reinforcing all of this electromagnetic matrix with the sweet, and with the melanin and the melanated fruit, which is the date, you know what I mean, which is also a seed of creation. Um, just a one, it's a wonderful. In the honey, is a substance that does not disintegrate. Honey is
Ever.
honey is perpetual, right? So I mean, it is eternal, right? So we got it recreate. It's in that perpetual rebirthing and eternity and all that. The offerings that are given to it, and you slide the offering plate into the sarcophagus, and you actually give that to the deceased person, okay, at their mortuary temple. Now the Nubian mortuaries
So
are
we've been setting plates out since the beginning of history.
yes, yes, and yes, that offering plate is the same offering plate, and they do it at if they don't have as we said, we don't have they don't have the royal cemetery. They're going to the cemetery themselves and setting it on the graves. That's what Nubians do. One of the things that I learned when I went to Aswan to visit the Nubian
Okay.
to visit the Nubian museum that was built after uh, the Nubian village was flooded and now is under Lake Nubia. Is that the people come to the museums because
Intentionally flooded, not like it just accidentally somehow it was on purpose.
it was intentionally flooded. They flooded it. They used Nubian land as a sacrifice to Nubian land because they wanted to power. They wanted to power Egypt. So now
Yeah.
Egypt, environmentally, I don't know what this is going to mean, but Egypt is the Happy River, known as the Nile River, is a series of lakes now. Because they have 4 or 5 dams for electric power,
Yeah.
hydroelectric power, and so you don't have the flow of the Nile from the south to the north anymore. You have it goes to a certain point, and then there are these 5 or 6 dams now, and this is it's now exists now. When I in 2006 when I took a cruise from Cairo to Aswan, it was still, we had to get off at Aswan and then we had to take a car because of the dam that was, that was there. We started on the other side of the dam. So then we flowed up to as far as you could flow up to Aswan to there. And we did the tour of Luxor, which is Karnak, temple, which is Waset temple, the the city of 1,000 gates. They said 1,000 cities could fit inside of Karnak, inside of Waset when it was formed. But these are all traditions from ancient Nubia. There seems to be thoughts. There are thoughts, and I, including myself, is that temple was set on an older temple, and that temple was 5,000 years old. You know, and there's an older temple under it that's even older, and then that this is a model that is a model from ancient Waset. So these, what you talk about, these burial practices and these traditions, they come from ancient times, further than 5,000 years.
Yeah. Mhm. So why would a new temple be placed on top of an old temple? Is that intentional? Does it have something, because you mentioned burial being in at high points? So is that like a continuation?
It's just a continuation. It's just like a renovation. I mean, if a temple had been there for 5,000 years, I'm sure at some point they just renovated it, you know. Or it could have been times like these when people forgot who they were and what was going on, and that the reconstruction of Waset was a renewal process, a renewal for because that's when the Greeks and the Romans came to study, and they become civilized people because they were, as Dr. John Henry Clark said, they were living in the beaches like dogs and did not know anything of civilization before they came to the University of Waset. So it could have been one of those times in their history when they observed um, a period of decline, of cultural decline. And so
Okay, that happens.
I feel like we're in a period of reawakening after many years of cultural decline because we have so many ways, including this show, that we are that we are that we are that we are um, becoming re-enlightened. Now, the re-enlightening process is something because it comes with features of the unknown. If the features of the unknown, because it comes with, we don't know what people were doing previous to us. We don't know. It's not just like the pyramid texts that give us a lot of information about what was going on, because when language started, we know that Aset and Asar were very, very important people. They were showing the people cultivation of the land. They were showing people how to how to be civilized human beings, how to be civilized human beings. So this is very important what you're talking about, because not only the burial, we're talking about the burial practice. We're talking about how people thought about regeneration, how they thought how the soul passed into eternity, how they thought that this soul was always a part of them, that there's a continuum, but it's not linear, it's cyclical, it's circular, like there it's a revolving and thing,
Spiral.
yeah,
Mm.
yeah. And so it's not something um that is, it's they thought about time differently. Time was eternal, but remember, who's in the underworld, who weighs the heart? It's again, it's these Queen Asar and King Asar and Queen Aset, who is ushering us back into the regenerative stage. That's why Asar is green, because he's rebirthing back
Right.
into the regenerate, the rebirth, the regeneration. That's why he has 28 spears of corn in him, because he's talking about agriculture, that he is actually rebirthed, and he is actually involved with the rebirthing process. His you know um, the respectful way that disrespectful way in which he met his demise is actually he gained back much more of his purpose and his respect in the underworld, as always being there to usher in the rebirth process. So death was not. Um, you said you're a death doula. I think you are more of a ancestral
Full
transition, or
spectrum.
ancestral entrance person. Because you're helping a person, the death doula. You're helping these people enter into life. Because remember, those people in ancient Kemet, and before ancient Kemet, ancient Kush, they respected um, the afterlife as life, and then the afterlife was life, and then the um, life was thought of as death. Okay, so
Two sides of the same coin.
yes, yes. So because it's so small, it's such a small amount of time. So they said
Mm.
the temporary time was more of a death, and then you were reborn, and the eternal time was life. So it was opposite. Now remember, this is perspective, because we're talking about opposites. We're talking about a culture that everything had a balance, everything had an opposite. Above the Nile River is what? The Milky Way, which is the river in the sky, right? So we have all of these opposites, and this goes back from ancient Kemet. When you see the pyramids on Earth, the three pyramids under Orion Sahuti, because the opposite of that is the sky. The
Yes.
stars are eternal,
Lined up.
and we are, yes, all of the pyramids, even in ancient Nubia, in ancient Meroë, ancient Kush, they observe the same thing. And we oftentimes don't realize that these cultures are the same cultures. They basically have the same
Mm-hmm.
practices and the same origins. Even when they,
Yeah.
there's always, oh well, ancient Kush was influenced by ancient Kemet, but Taharka was the one who was set in place under a long line of people to replace, to put people back on the ancient path, and that was his place, is to put people
Okay.
back on the
Because
ancient path.
Arca, he ruled both in Kush and in Kemet.
Yeah,
Right.
he united those empires. He
Okay.
united them. And so that's, he moved he moved the capital to Napata, during his lifetime.
No.
Which was
Yes.
Napata was the home of Amen, because Amen comes from there. But before that, it was Tua. You know what I mean? That it was Mount Tua, Tua or what? Tua, which is that most ancient people, because we know that the Sphinx was created by the Tua people. So we got
Yeah.
all of these people are matriarchal cultures. Okay, so we have all of that. I was asked by one of your Babas, teach Terry and everything you know about ancient Meroë. So this is the beginning. So but this is also just showing you how linked all of this is and how ancient it is. Because Jebel Barkal is
Mhm.
so old they cannot, which is Mount Tua or Mount Tua, which
Yeah.
Tua is the most ancient people in the world. It's not known whether that mountain is man made or if it is natural. It's very thought, and it means the etymology of Barkle is the ship. And the legend of the people is that men used to come back and forth in sparks and fire. What does that sound like? You to make your own interpretation. You know what I mean? That he was able to travel in a ship of some type, right? So this is, we're talking about 10,000-year old oral history. So this, and then the radiation levels are really high on top of there. So maybe that's very interesting that the radiation levels are high. When I happened to climb up to the top of Jebel Barkal, I don't know if I'll ever do that again. But when I climbed up to the top of Jebel
Wow.
Barkal, they took somebody was taking, well, the person I was taking the radioactive readings, and it was 17 up there, which is pretty high, which is pretty high. Why, we don't know now. They say
Wow.
it's the granite, because Amen's temple, built by Taharka, was made of pure granite. So there were pieces of the temple um, that were laying all over the ground. It was quite a spiritual experience, and and Taharka, who, of course, practicing the same thing that we're talking about, he built a gold plate on the side of Mount Tua, and that in a gold plate on his pyramid. So the sun would reflect that gold plate onto his pyramid every year on his birthday. And so during that time on his birthday, he would be regenerated. Now, those pyramids happen to be a portion of the pyramids that in Nuri, that are in light Nuri, which means, or El Nur, which means the light cemetery, which goes back to Neat and God, talking of basically the place of light, the blessed place, the sacred place, right? Is where that cemetery is, in that he was buried there, and now the water table of the Happy River has covered his body, right? But it's almost like it's a regenerative birth process, that his body goes into the water and is regenerated every birthday, every day. It's kind of spiritual, that the way this happened. So I don't know if this was purposefully done, or if just the water table raised over time. um, these people were so full of knowledge. It's hard for me to believe that the very few things that they did suffered from just,
Coincidental.
right, right,
And there's no way.
yeah,
So, such so deliberate. I mean, to
yes,
put so much into the continuum.
yes,
Like it seems like the all of the culture is centered around the
continuum,
continuum between life and death, the cycle between life and death. Like
yes,
that is like the pinnacle of culture. And so that makes me think about subsequent burial practices. Even now, the way that some of our people in the diaspora and on the continent, the way that we are about burials, no matter what background it comes from, we are very serious about the way that we take care of our dead. For things that are considered to be taboo, like cremation used to be. Things are changing now, but it seems like it's our people in particular who were like, "You're not burning me up," you know.
Right.
Although, you know, that's part of programming too. But I just mean like just being very particular about how we're going to be laid out. You know, what kind of outfit, the nails, the hair, everything is so well thought out. You know, nothing is left to chance.
No, in our burial practices are different. If you ever had a chance to go to a non-black person's funeral, um, do so because it's very different. There's no obituary. I learned, where I learned that is looking at
I'm
Michael
sorry,
Jackson's
there's no
funeral.
obituary?
There's no obituary. There's
Okay.
no singing. They just say prayers and the view, and maybe there's some remarks, but that's it. The singing is very important in ours because it's how the soul finds its way to heaven and how the
Yes.
soul finds its way back to you. You know what I mean? The soul, the singing is when that person is gone and they hear the singing, then they can come back to the funeral and join you. That's the reason why we sing. Um, and that's very African, and we don't realize that. I mean, the moaning and the mourning is something that is very African too. The shape of the tombstone comes from the stela, from the African stela that were formed in ancient Meroë. And people borrowed that. Of course, Africans brought that with them when they came. And so people followed suit after that. But before that, Europeans didn't have any markers on graves. Graves were just, either you sent them out to sea or you buried them, and that's it. You know what I mean? There were not very many rituals or anything. The hospitality, period. Our was not existent before Africa.
Okay, I think we're breaking up a little bit. So I think this is going to be part one of this conversation. Um, we wanted to also, oh, Okay, it's moving.
Hello. Hi.
Oh,
All
okay,
right.
we're back. Uh-oh. Wait, are we frozen again?
I don't know. Are you I see you being frozen, but not 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 on this end.
Hmm.
Can you hear me? You can hear me though, right?
I can hear you. Oh, there you go.
Yeah, you're not frozen
Okay. Was I frozen?
for a second.
Oh, okay. Well, we can just edit all that out. Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
so, oh, it was really getting juicy, so I can tell this is going to be part one. Um, but I did
But
want to
but yeah,
get to
those
that is
yeah.
really interesting. I did not know about other people's funerals. Okay,
Yeah,
but
if
that
you ever get a chance to do it yourself, just go to a non-black person's funeral and see how it goes. Then we're the I believe we may be the only ones who do obituaries,
wow.
um, because we always want to have something, the history of that person. That's who
Mhm.
we are.
Yeah,
And just like those traditions are in ancient Meroë, ancient Kemet, that each person wrote their history on the stela. I think that that's a remnant of that that has transitioned with us from all of our migratory settlements in West Africa and Central Africa and things like that. And even from our antiquity of the from ancient Sun people, I think that that is the San people speak with the stars, and they say you can't speak with the stars because they speak with the stars, which means they're speaking with the ancestors, right? They're speaking with the ancestors. I mentioned in a article I just wrote about the ancestors. Basically when you are looking at the sky, and I have done that. I remember I was staring at a like it was a, a big orange star, a big orange star, and I was just like, wow, I've never seen a star that bright with orange. And then its light went out. Well, that light went out trillions of years ago, and finally, so you're connected with the past and the present. So that light actually extended into the future. So that's the way Africans, and they understood this, and that's the way Africans looked at time. That it was cyclical. The past was the future, was the present, was it was all at the same time. That it was just a big cycle, and that's why we have that spiritual song, "Let the Circle Be Unbroken," because it
hmm
had and by, and all of that. That really is talking about time, and that all this our temporality is a lot different than other people's, and we think and because we have been around as intellectuals, as human beings for
yeah.
2 million years, and so matriarchy, when you get back to it, is a more mature way of looking at the world. It's an unselfish, egalitarian mode of being, and it just people who have not evolved to that level of thinking, where everything is immediate gratification, everything is individual. Well, we've learned after 2 million years that community is the best form of social organization.
So, how have you, how have the ancestors inspired your work?
Wow, that's a huge question. The ancestors continuously inspire my work. Um, I am inspired by Dr. Dr. Ben Yakanan, Dr. John Henry Clark, um, the words, the lessons that Dr. Asa Hilliard taught me, because all of these ancestors inspired me to get our people um, to a place before the upset, before, before the oppression, before we were dismantled culturally, and that all of these people were 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 working toward a cultural renaissance. So, Job's books, I get into Job's book, like I said, that point that I have to disagree with that matriarchy was formed by a man. Now, matriarchy came out of the development um, of civilizations, and everybody, you know, at some point understood the importance of women, because we were the creatresses. We are the people that created life. And so we have to be uplifted. We have to, you know what I mean? And we also have that direct connection with all of our ancestral um, lineages. Women are the only one that have, all of the DNA of all of the mothers from time immemorial in our bodies. Men don't have that. So
Mhm.
I think that all of these ancestors that, I feel like I'm channeling the ancestors all the way back to the beginning of time. What are they trying to tell me? What are they trying to say? I mean, they communicate with me in different ways. They put people in my path. Um, they open doors for me, and I think that I'm inspired by the excellence that I'm seeing in them, from ancient Nubia, from ancient Kush, from Dr. Ben Asa Hilliard, um, to Drusilla Dunjee, who's Ethiopian pillars. You know what I mean? These people have showed me what excellence is, and how to be, and how to not only excellent, because as Dr. Asante says, you can't just be excellent in the schoolwork. You have to be a good, decent person. You have to be an asset to your community. You have to be an asset to your family. You have to be, we have to be well rounded. It just can't be in one. It shouldn't be in one area. We're all humans, so nobody's perfect. But there's there it should be an intentional way to strive toward being the best person we can. Is around you know full, full circle. Not only that we have this great knowledge of, and do this to be respected as a great person. I'm just a little piece of the link, and hopefully I'm passing this on down to the next link. And somebody can go a lot further than where I took it, and that we can build upon this and build upon this until we rebuild our African past, present, and future, and return ourselves to our historical greatness. Now, that was, we were talking about the time of Black supremacy. People call it Black supremacy, but there was only one um, civilization at that time. So I wouldn't call it Black
Mhm.
supremacy. I just call it Black
Yeah, it's
excellence,
not really a
where
thing.
they had achieved. Pardon me.
I said, yeah, that's not really a thing. That's just transposing on
No, it
top of some
isn't.
other stuff. Yeah.
Yes, we don't want to use the terminology and mimic white supremacy and talk about black, that this is a time of black supremacy, but black supremacy in the truer sense and non-racial sense, where we were
Mhm.
definitely ruling supreme in knowledge, in technology, in longevity, in health,
Primary.
in science. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? We were so
Hmm.
we have to think about things a
I
little bit
think,
different. This was
yeah,
before
these days
the
we call
old
it
way.
Black excellence.
Yes,
Hmm.
yes. But this is
One
what
of the things.
Job has in
So,
his book Black Soap. So I
mm,
use that term, based on the Jopian um, concept, in which he said black supremacy. But but
gotcha.
there was nothing else. There was nothing else at the time. You know what I mean? So you could call it supreme, but it is. It's black. We had. it was excellence is too finite of a term as well. To tell you the truth, because we
True.
had achieved
It is.
through through trial and error and longevity. I mean, you do something for 1.9 billion years. I would hope that at some point that you get it right. I would hope
Yeah,
at
that's
some
fair.
point that it will, but that's a long period of time. We
Mm-hmm.
always think of things in linear time, but remember, there are catastrophes, earthquakes, fires, storms that wiped out civilizations. People had to rebuild. So this process probably stopped and started far more times than we can really fathom because of
Mm-hmm.
nature.
So
Now we
our
can
recent great
know.
disaster is just one more thing. Our
Right,
recent
right.
Ma'afa was
I
just
mean,
one
because
more
it
thing. Mm.
was one more thing that happened that set us back. That set
Mm-hmm.
people back and people all over the world. 2,000 years before that, it was the Arab Ma'afa. You know what I mean? Where the Arabs were sending
True.
Africans to the Eastern Hemisphere and all over. They were enslaving people from Europe as well. Before Europe
Mm-hmm.
was Europe. You know what I mean? That Europe just wasn't. They did not consider it a land base where most of it is actually little peninsulas and islands. And anyway, but they're calling it a continent. But anyway, this but Europe was also been that the Arabs came and invaded many different spaces too, and we also know that the world was much different. And you mentioned xenophobia and race. People
Yeah.
dealt with people with each other on nationalities, not race.
Mm-hmm.
So there's Chinese people, Black people, African descendants here. They see all these people living in the neighborhood. These people are people that are from the nation, right? Their their identity is their national identity, not their race. And people didn't think
Mm-hmm.
like back then. So this with Friedrich and all those people that came up with this xenophobia and this race superstition, because it doesn't even make sense. It's a superstition in that people are believing, you know, in this race ladder that doesn't make sense. It's a superstition. It's when you believe in stuff that just doesn't make doesn't have any really point of origin and things that you really don't truly understand. It's superstition. Stevie Wonder told us that a long time ago. So it's just that we we
Uh-oh.
we
We're breaking
we
up
have
again.
suffered a lot of mental casualties under white supremacy, because that it kills the ability of people to see Africa. The matriarchal system is based on Ma'at, on truth, balance, rest, expansive to just truth, balance, and rest. Taking care of the land, taking care of each other.
Yes. So before we began our conversation, I pulled two oracle cards, and I like to do that to sort of guide or inspire the conversation. And the first one was, let's see if it's visible.
This happened to you
I pulled
before.
two cards.
You
They're
pulled
not,
two
it's not
cards.
showing up. I
You
pulled
pulled
two
two
cards, and
cards?
they're not showing up. Yes, but before we began our conversation, there were two cards that I pulled, and one was, almost see it. This is Divine Feminine Awakening,
Oh,
and um, Divine, I'm sorry, Dark Divine Mother of Creation. So it's just interesting
okay.
the way the conversation has
Right.
gone.
Right.
Yeah.
Because
So
because
the
we can't talk about rebirth without
mm,
talking about the foundation without foundational principles. The foundational principles of
yeah,
Africans throughout Africa and um, you know, and rebirth and it's all wrapped around Ma'at, and it's all wrapped around rebirth. It's all wrapped around Renaissance. It's all wrapped around stewardship for the earth. That's the reason why people didn't burn people, is because people thought that they were preserving their body for rebirth. You know,
yeah.
that's why. You know,
Hmm.
I placed a coin in my father's hand. You know, to take with him. He gave me. It was a coin he gave me when I was a child. It was this one of these Kennedy dollar heads. So I placed two of him so that when he goes across the rivers, that he could take that coin with him and he could, pay his fare and go to the other side. So when he comes back to me sometimes. I get a sense that he's able to come back to him because I gave him his coins. That he's able to make his, pay his fare back and forth across that great that great divide into the afterlife to it. So I just feel like, we just you asked me why these people inspired me, because they inspired me to keep on going and keep on trying to fight and research and find different parts of information to make us whole Africans again, and to make us understand. I want us to get to the back out to the point that we left. So we understood who we are, and we understood our traditions and how important it is.
Breaking up a little
Hopefully
bit.
that's, you know, with the rebirth process, um, that the Africans showed us to respect our ancestors in libations, in making sure that the Africans were sitting at the table with us, making them a plate. All of these rituals. Okay, uh, I know I froze for a second, but I just kept on going because I didn't know what you get able to get and whatever you're not. But I think that those burial practices you mentioned are all a part of the rebirthing process. All of them, the burial rituals, and that we have responsibilities to keep on um, sharing these and why they're important. Um, because these little souls that they leave us, they're coming back around. You know what I mean? That they have to go through that process again. You know, my granddaughter sometimes says, when she says she remembers when she was a little baby waiting to be born, and she was just inside the womb kind of playing, just
Of course, she remembers. Uh-oh. And we're out again. Mm. Mm.
Okay, so how did all that? Did we end?
I don't know. Your picture's not back yet. We still have to
Oh,
close.
okay. All right, it's not back yet.
Oh, it's 3 participants.
Okay, who's the third one? Maybe
Mm.
one of those did close.
Okay. One has the camera
Maybe
off.
one of mine.
I mean, it's fine. It's fine either way. Um,
Well, I can step back into the light since we got this dark thing happening now. This lack of sunlight. So most people can see me.
lovely. So the final question, oh yeah, we were just talking about these two, which I figured out I can just hold them in front of my face to see them. Anyway, the final question is just in a nutshell, what is one thing that you wish more people understood about death?
I wish people understood that it's not so final, and um, that people that that the love that people shared and all of that kind of stuff that people shared on earth, it stays with us, and that is all part of the recycling process, that we all go through it, we all will be a part of it, and to not to fear it, just welcome it. And especially, it's hard, when somebody spends a full life, and then they live out their life and then they transition. It's easier to accept those deaths than deaths that you think a newborn or a very young person, which you feel that they weren't able to live out um, their life in their purpose. But we don't know that. They might have served their purpose.
Hands on the purpose. Mm-hmm.
Depends on the purpose. But maybe the purpose was just to make you aware of something you had not been aware of. So we don't know that, and that everybody's life has a purpose. Um, and that just really to just be more accepting, and try, because losses can be so devastating, and so we really want to accept that this process is a part of life, and not to fear it.
Agreed. Well, Asante Sana, thank you so much for this part one of the discussion.